Hi, this is Shane Starr, and I have been doing a lot of reading on the Socionics version of FI. I have some notes here from Augusta and also the Wiki Socion version of Socionics, where they sort of collaborate a bunch of different schools of thoughts into more manageable or easy to understand definitions. And I do want to give this subject more time than I have right now, but I thought this would be a good little introductory video about the different positions of FI in a socionics cognitive stack, which requires a short definition first. And the description I have from Augusta is that FI is simply the subjective relationship between two carriers of potential kinetic energy um, that shows a level of attraction or repulsion between a subject and an object, or a subject and another subject. And in short, what this means in everyday English is you have very specific likes and dislikes for things and for people. Now, they go on to say that these objects are things that either satisfy physical wishes or desires, psychological or even spiritual wishes or desires, and these are interests that can be directed towards animate or inanimate objects. So again, we're back to just feelings of like and dislike, love, hatred, and depending on where your FI is in your cognitive stack, you can have different attitudes towards the same object or person. So, with someone, and that's a good segue into the different positions. So someone with lead FI, they're not going to have that much variation. They're very good at knowing who they like, who they dislike, who they're maybe lukewarm about, but there won't be too many of those because they'll slide into one or the other of the first two. And that goes not just for people, but for things. So they can tell you who their friends are, who their enemies are, who their acquaintances are. They can tell you their favorite colors or places or restaurants. They can even rank them without too much trouble. So everything they see, they can relate to their personal assessment of it, and rather quickly. And when I think of this, it's like I can picture that, like I'm very picky about the foods I like, the colors and outfits I like, especially about my aesthetics. That's where, when I think of aesthetics alone, I could consider myself, could I be a lead FI? Not that I am or even think I am, but I could see it in terms of inanimate objects. Like, I have a very refined sense of taste, and I don't mean that in a sophisticated sort of way. I mean it in just a picky sort of way. So on that count, I see it. But when it comes to people are more difficult. So just on that basis alone, lead FI is out the window for me, as it probably is with many of you. I would say lead FI people, if there's a common fault with them, it's that they just don't change their minds. It's very difficult to get a lead FI person to change his or her mind about a person or a political stance or anything. Even if you give them evidence to the contrary, they won't care. It just goes in one ear and out the other. Once they've made their determination on something, that's it. It's over. Case closed. You're not going to change their mind with all the logic in the world. What about in second position? This one gets a little more interesting. For socionics, by the way, the first one would be ESIs and EIIs. For the second function, this would be your SEEs and IEEs, ESFPs and ENFPs. And for these people, they have those same characteristics in general but the difference is that it's more situational or contextual. So they can go in and out, sort of like a salesperson, like, they're your best friend while they're trying to get that sale, but then the minute they've closed the deal, suddenly they, John Cena, you can't see me, right? They don't know you anymore, and I think, these people, like I work with someone who, I don't know if she's an SEE, but she's definitely an ESFP. And I just see her turn on the charm, and then it just shuts back off and then turns right back on again. And it's very interesting from a psychological standpoint, what's going on inside the person's mind who can just flip a switch like that effortlessly. Like I think all of us can with effort, or most of us, or many of us, maybe only some of us can with effort, but when people just do it seamlessly, just smiles, frowns, smiles again, laugh, cry, it's, and I know from a socionics perspective, I'm talking about FE instead of FI. I get that. But it is something, maybe I'm talking about demo FE, because it's just something I find very consistent with people with FI in the second position. And that is, they have strong likes, they have strong dislikes, but they can change their mind. Whereas the lead FI won't. So it's very contextual. So from this perspective, at least, now World Socionics could have something to say about this, but from the Augusta theory of FI, second position doesn't sound like me. Okay, what about role function? That's sixth position in MBTI, third in Socionics. These are people who they recognize the existence and importance of personal relationships, but they're not that good at them, so they're sort of standoffish. They want to avoid errors, so they are very careful with expressing their opinions. And then when they do, they're just blunt and out there. And usually people forgive them of this because they know, well, that's just so-and-so, that's how they are. And they only reveal that inner side, if they're drunk, or if they're, they're your husband or wife, or long-term partner or sibling or something. Even then, it can be a difficult endeavor. I don't really have much more to say about role function FI, except in this context, I don't really relate to it that much. I have stronger opinions, somewhat in context, but I'm not that afraid to express them. Fourth position, vulnerable. Now this is where it really gets interesting. This is our SLEs and ILEs, ESTPs and ENTPs. And here you have two things going on. On the one hand, they don't pay that much attention to the nuances of interpersonal relationships. People who do put such attention to things, they're seen as sort of suspicious characters by these types. They're usually good at not oversharing their personal feelings, because they know how they would feel when people overshare with them. They don't really like it. They don't like the burden. They don't like putting the burden on others. They don't like receiving the burden. They're really blind to these inner working emotions and relations, and that's why it's their vulnerable polar function. They just don't do it. They don't appreciate it. They don't like it either. Now, the other thing going on that's not really mentioned here is they have a difficulty, unlike the lead FI, they have difficulty ranking their likes and dislikes. It's been said somewhere, I think it was Love Who mentioned this, and I think he's spot on. No types have as many frenemies as these people, where they're not sure if they're friends or enemies. And that sounds foreign to some of us. I'm close enough to where I can get it, but not quite. So these people are deceivers, and they also are very deceivable, it's like a Darwinistic world of FI out there with these guys. They con other people, and they get conned by other people as well. Think of the, cheater who comes home and finds out his wife left him for his best friend, and now he's feeling it too, and it's just this inner twirling downward spiral of blind FI going into the darkness. Anyway, I might not be that great at FI, but I don't think I'm this bad. Moving on. FI is suggestive. This is our LIEs, EENTJs, and LSEs, ESTJs, which, as anyone watching this channel knows, I was typed LSE by Rusted in Rusted Typology. And the way he describes it in his system, I think it's really a good fit. So let's see if it fits. Okay, so these individuals want close personal relationships where private experiences can be shared easily in a sphere of mutual trust. Yeah, I get that, and I feel that. But I think that is almost like a horoscope that would apply to everyone. So let's take a closer look. They are not confident of their ability to correctly evaluate the existence or status of such relationships. Now, this I can really relate to. A lot of times, like in a relationship, I'm not sure how good we are, how not good. Not totally blind like an SLE or ILE would be, where they have no clue. But, a lot of times people tell me, they really cared for me. It's like, I never knew, Other times I thought people were my friends, and I find out they weren't really that close to me, and they deceived me and talked behind my back and said hurtful things. I've been the victim of that too. And I've also been less than a perfect friend to people who really had my best interests in mind, and I've given the best of myself for people who didn't. So we're starting to veer almost close to that dangerous polar function FI, but not quite. For us in this section, we have a mistrust, so to speak. We do care about it, but being suggestive, it's something we value, but we have doubts about. We have doubt until someone just expresses themselves in black and white terms. I think that's the best way to put it. Here it says expressing feelings verbally and unambiguously in a way that matches not just their stated feelings, but their actions as well. So what does that mean in everyday language? We're insecure. Okay, so I think that's where suggestive FI comes in, and it's one-dimensional, so it pretty much sucks. It's no good. It's not polar, but not far from it. So think not the South Pole, but like Southern Australia or the tip of Argentina or something, right? Okay, so moving on. FIs mobilizing, ILIs, and SLIs. I have problems with this just because of the EI or JP switch in Socionics and MBTI. These people want stable relationships, but their FE is so weak they don't know how to go about asking for them or getting them. In Socionics, that comes as it is polar FE, but then they have mobilizing FI, so it's a little bit better, two-dimensional, but it's not that good. They see the beauty in it and the goodness of it. They do value it, but it's just not very good. Same way as FE is for those of us with suggestive FE. All right, ignoring function. These are ESFJs and ENFJs. So they're strong in it, but they ignore it. FI ignoring. These people, they have a reluctance to go all in on people with the absence of signs. So think in the same terms of suggesting, but a little bit stronger. So they have their doubts, but they're better at deciphering who they should and shouldn't be friends with. Three-dimensional instead of two-dimensional, unvaluing versus valuing. So that's a weird intersection. Two-dimensional valued FE, which is the subjective suggestive function versus a little bit better three-dimensional but ignoring function of these guys. So they're not going to like anything lukewarm. They're going to want to have a clear picture, but once they get that clear picture, they'll go all in one way or the other. Again, not like a lead FI, but they're going to be better at it than their ESTJ and ENTJ friends and family members. I don't have much more to say about that. FI last as demo. This is our SEIs and IEIs. These people are surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly, they're really good about having close bonds between two individuals. They're not going to have a lot of external FE emotional expression, but they will, they'll have strong personal bonds with people. They just will be a little more situational as opposed to just static, and they're always there. So think, it's kind of almost similar to ESFPs and ENFPs in this regard. Strong, they just don't value it as much as them. And I think that's it. Hopefully this brought some clarity instead of more fogginess to your understanding of FI in Socionics descriptions. And next I'm going to do MBTI FI, and I think that one's like way easier for me, but still, this is enlightening, it's helpful, and it might help us get to know our strengths and weaknesses a little bit better. So I hope you enjoyed it. That's it. Peace out.